right, well, good morning. My name is Nick Smith, and I'm the Chief Operating Officer for the National Safety Council. And I just want to thank all of our guests for being here, and many of whom I'm going to introduce here shortly will come up and speak this morning. But all of us clearly are here because we share a passion for saving lives. There continues to be a troubling trend of rising traffic fatalities across America. The National Safety Council estimates that 46,000 people were killed in 2021 alone. And we know that older people, communities of color, and low-income communities are overrepresented in this data. More must be done because clearly the status quo just isn't working. We need to leverage our research, knowledge, and passion for this topic to find new solutions and turn the tide on traffic violence. Juxtaposed against the increase in roadway fatalities, we are also witnessing an unprecedented explosion of new modalities being introduced, creating new and unsettled areas of mobility safety. Recognizing this, the National Safety Council commissioned a report to examine the history of traffic safety and how to help identify the trends that will define our industry today and over the next 2 decades. This report is called Mobility, Technology, and Safety, the Next 20 Years. We can capture the findings of this report, the passion of the thousands of advocates who NSC works with, and the leadership of Capitol Hill and the U.S. Department of Transportation to make progress on our goal of zero traffic deaths. We're here today to share how NSC is prepared to stand with our partners to be the shift that's needed in roadway safety and to call on our leaders to join us. Today, you'll hear from leaders in the mobility safety space, including Congresswoman Eleanor Holmes Norton, Director Christina Swallow of the Nevada Department of Transportation, and Michael Kelly, Policy Director of Bike Walk KC. They will be joined by David Zipper, author of the report, and NSC staff members who have worked closely on this project. And now I'd like to hand it over to Congresswoman Eleanor Holmes Norton, who is very close to these issues as the chair of the Highway and Transit Subcommittee. Congresswoman.
Thank you. And thank you for inviting me to speak on this critically pressing issue of traffic safety and mobility. It is clear that we are moving in the wrong direction when it comes to traffic safety. The National Highway Traffic Safety Administration estimates that 42,915 people were killed on our roadways in 2021. That is a 10.5% increase over the previous year's total, and the single largest annual increase in the history of the traffic fatality tracking system. Our roadways have been especially dangerous for our most vulnerable users. Deaths among people walking and biking have increased by 62% in the last decade. Pedestrian deaths made up almost half of all traffic-related fatalities in the District of Columbia last year, so this is an issue that hits close to home for me. For too long, transportation policies have treated preventable traffic deaths as inevitable, prioritized speed over safety, and focused solely on moving cars quickly. I am proud that the Committee on Transportation and Infrastructure's Invest in America Act took a strong stance on improving road safety and lifted the focus to safe mobility for all road users. Thankfully, the bipartisan infrastructure law included many of the Invest Act's key safety elements. Moreover, the bipartisan infrastructure law is much stronger on roadway safety than any previous surface transportation law has been. It provides states and local governments key policy direction and historic funding to invest in roadway safety. In particular, the law established the Safe Streets and Roads for All grant program. That will provide $5 billion over the next 5 years to local governments for improving roadway safety. The new program aims to significantly reduce or eliminate roadway fatalities and serious injuries for all users, with special focus on vulnerable users. The law also reauthorized the Highway Safety Improvement Program, ensuring that states will receive more than $15.5 billion over the next 5 years for projects that will achieve a significant reduction in traffic fatalities and serious injuries on public roads, including local roads and roads on tribal land. This funding represents a 34% increase over the funding levels set in the previous surface transportation law. The rhetoric around traffic safety has finally begun to change, thanks in part to the tireless efforts of traffic safety advocates such as the National Safety Council. I am pleased to be with you today as the National Safety Council releases its report examining how transportation technologies will impact traffic safety in urban areas over the next 20 years. Thank you to the National Safety Council for your tireless work on this important issue. I look forward to hearing what the research has found. Thank you very much.
Thank you to the Congresswoman. Having her voice here is particularly powerful, so we really appreciate her being here today. So thank you for that. I now want to introduce David Zipper, who's the author of today's report, and ask him to share some insights.
Well, thank you very much, Nick, and I'll also say thank you to the Congresswoman. I'm a Ward 5 resident here in the District of Columbia, and it's gratifying on a personal level to see the Congresswoman take such a personal interest in an issue that is so essential, not just in the district, but across the country. As Nick mentioned, I'm a visiting fellow at the Harvard Kennedy School and the Taubman Center for State and Local Government, where my writing there and in other places focuses on transportation, technology, policy, and safety. And I was pleasantly surprised to get a phone call from NSC a year ago inviting me to collaborate on this project as they explained what the interest was in the roadway safety practice. And I was happy about it for a couple reasons as I learned more about the effort. First of all, I had been searching to see organizations and policymakers express the urgency that I feel is entirely appropriate for addressing the U.S. road safety crisis. The Congresswoman is right. The status quo is not working. We are uniquely bad at this in the United States. Not only have our road fatalities been rising over the last decade, including last year, the fastest growth in fatalities on record, we're the only wealthy country seeing this. It's not happening in East Asia. It's not happening in Europe. It's not even happening in Canada. In fact, the average American is 2.5 times as likely to die in a crash as the average Canadian. The data alone makes clear that we need to challenge as Americans how we think about road safety and look for new solutions. And the other reason I was happy to hear from NSC is that we are living in a time of unprecedented technological change in transportation. I always think it's interesting to point out that basically the modes of transportation that you used to get around a city in 1920 were largely the same in 2000. You can walk, you can bike, you can drive, take a taxi maybe. It's pretty much the same in 1920 and 2000. But in the last 20 years, we all know this. We have ride hail, we have scooters, we have electric bikes, we have bike share. We have autonomous vehicles coming, and the next 20 years are going to be just as disruptive. I think everyone expects, and I believe myself. And those technologies complicate the challenges around safety. They create opportunities, but they also create risks. For example, pedestrian detection equipment, if it works well on cars, might save lives, particularly among those most vulnerable on our streets. On the other hand, sidewalk drones could take up the space of pedestrians and those in wheelchairs. That's something that's worrisome. And I was very happy to see that NSC was interested in taking a deep dive with this report to consider what are we doing wrong with some of our historical approaches to roadway safety, and how can we understand what's coming with technology to get a little bit ahead of the curve and capitalize on these innovations to actually make a positive difference and save lives. So it's been a pleasure working with NSC over the last year on the report. The executive summary you have now, I understand the full report will come very soon. And I'm grateful for NSC's leadership on this initiative because, as I said, I think it is high time that safety advocates and policymakers alike at the federal, state, and local level recognize that it's time for fresh approaches because lives are at stake. So I thank you for your time, and I'll turn things now over to Heidi Simon at NSC.
Thank you, David. I'm Heidi Simon. I'm a senior program manager at the National Safety Council, excuse me, and I've had the pleasure to be on the team working on this project for the past year. These findings, which we hope you will spend time getting to know a little bit better, point to urgent areas that should be priorities in addressing roadway fatalities. We already know, for example, the deadly role that larger and heavy vehicles play when in a crash with people walking and biking. We have seen the disruption on our streets that new technology, increased deliveries, and the ever-present impacts of climate change have on mobility. And we know that as a profession, we have an obligation to address the disparities in access and safety that exist for people of color and low-income communities as we work to reduce fatalities across the U.S. This new report confirms and expands upon these points, demonstrating the urgency we need to have in acting on these trends. The report isn't the final step but the beginning for us at NSC and for those in this community. We cannot do this alone, and we know this. And so starting today, NSC will be expanding and shifting programming, communication, and strategy to act decisively on what we are learning. To do that, we are putting together a new advisory group of leading experts to inform NSC's continued efforts. I would like to introduce them now. Many of them are in this room. They are Jordan Davis with Smart Columbus, Veronica Davis with the City of Houston, Seth LaJeunesse with the University of North Carolina's Highway Safety Research Center, Michael Kelly with Bike Walk KC, Corinne Kisner with the National Association of City Transportation Officials, Phil Kottman with Carnegie Mellon University, Peter Norton with the University of Virginia, Kelsey Ralph with Rutgers University, Christina Swallow with Nevada Department of Transportation, Brad Thomas with First Transit, Shinpei Se with Uber, Anna Zvarts with Disability Rights Washington, and David Zipper, the author of this report. As I said, we cannot do this alone, and it's not just efforts on the national level that we need. We have asked that two of our representatives of the new advisory group come and share their experience in this world and what they hope to see in the future at the state and the local level. First, Director Christina Swallow with the Nevada Department of Transportation.
Thank you, Heidi, and good morning. I'm honored to be here, and I'm grateful to the NSC for not just giving me the opportunity to take part in this presser today, but also to be a part of these important conversations. I'm a director of a state transportation agency, but I'm also a transportation cyclist, a transit user, a pedestrian, and a driver. Safety is just not part of my job. It is truly my passion. As a DOT leader, I recognize the role that DOTs play in achieving zero fatalities. First and foremost, as infrastructure owners and builders, we bear the responsibility to create transportation systems that support safe and connected communities. But we also have the responsibility to elevate the conversation, to change and challenge past assumptions, and to move the discussion to strategies that move us towards success. These strategies extend beyond infrastructure and include behavior, vehicle design, enforcement methods, and areas even further beyond our direct scope. To achieve the goal of zero fatalities, we must be willing to ask challenging questions. For instance, are the decisions being made in roadway design, city planning, and land use contributing to the solution? If not, how can we work together across industries and all levels of government to more effectively achieve our common goal? As DOT leaders work to address these issues and more, we see an opportunity to lead, collaborate, and examine and prioritize strategies to save lives. We recognize our role and our ownership of this challenging issue. In Nevada, we are looking closely to determine if our strategies to support transportation needs, do they support the needs of all community members? Not just drivers, but also motorcyclists, bicyclists, pedestrians, and those with mobility challenges. Our goal to cut fatalities in half by 2030 and to continue towards the goal of zero by 2050 will be difficult to achieve. It will require intention and dedication. At the Nevada DOT, we've adopted the Safe Systems approach and are aligning with the US DOT's National Roadway Safety Strategy to eliminate fatal and serious injuries for all roadway users. This means we're working to propose and refine best practices, and we're engaging all of our partners in engineering, education, and enforcement efforts with a clear and intentional emphasis on safety. Recently, we launched our Speed Management Action Plan to assist in further developing effective strategies to manage speed on all roadways in Nevada. We're working with our partner agencies to identify the most targeted engineering, enforcement, emergency medical, and educational countermeasures and strategies to reduce speed-related crashes consistently and equitably statewide on local and state roads. We are also encouraging our local partners to develop their own local road safety plans, and we're connecting them with traffic safety partners to holistically approach traffic safety across all roads. In addition, our department, in cooperation with the Department of Public Safety, brings law enforcement, first responders, municipalities, private towing, hazardous materials responders, and many more together in regional traffic incident management coalitions. These coalitions have provided training to 65% of all incident responders in Nevada to implement safe, consistent, and quick clearance of traffic incidents to improve roadway safety while reducing traffic delays and reducing the incidence of subsequent crashes. We're doing a lot. I can't even begin to talk about all of it, but I did want to just highlight one more program. As part of a year-long program funded by a Road to Zero grant, we partnered with the Regional Transportation Commission of Southern Nevada and the Department of Public Safety to leverage predictive analytics with AI-based traffic insights. We deployed strategic speed management sites and dynamic messaging signs to reduce speeding motorists by 43% and reduce crashes by 18% in corridors of focus in the Las Vegas metropolitan area. We learned a lot in that program, and we're working to make sure that we expand that learning and implement on further corridors throughout that valley. But we realize there's even more that can be done, which is why we're here today. The National Safety Council has created the Mobility Safety Advisory Group, and I'm honored to be a member of this group, to be a part of the challenging conversations. And we've already had some challenging conversations and broad-reaching, and I'm so excited to be part of this and to hear and learn from each other as we share our experiences in this space to really leverage and launch us forward. With the surge in traffic deaths, traffic safety is gaining new public attention, and the public is expecting results. Our goal is zero fatalities. To be successful, it will take all of us working together, because at the end of the day, it is our responsibility to ensure that every member of our community gets home safely every day.
Thank you, Director Swallow. And you heard Nick mentioned the passion of the advocates that we work with on a daily basis. And so I am pleased to now bring up another member of the group, Michael Kelly, who is the policy director at Bike Walk KC.
Good morning, everyone. I am here today as an advocate because I believe people deserve a choice. My young daughters love to explore the world around them, but live on a street without sidewalks and in a part of Kansas City, Missouri, isolated by Highway 71. My girls deserve the choice to move through their city however they want without having to worry about becoming one of the thousands of Americans who die on our roads every year due to traffic violence. As a transportation advocate, it is my responsibility to push for the policies, the plans, and the projects that provide people like my girls with the dignity and choice they deserve as they explore their community and navigate their adolescence. It means not only pushing for the adoption of complete streets policies which bring multimodal improvements over time, but immediate steps like repealing jaywalking as well. We must do both because as individuals, true choice rests in their freedom to do and exist as their full self, including in how they move. Whether it be walking, rolling, cycling, riding the bus, or driving, people deserve the freedom to choose how they go from one place to another. That pursuit of greater choice is what convinced me to connect with the National Safety Council and join their Mobility Safety Advisory Group today. Connectivity, as with advocacy, is how we make multimodal transportation work for everyone. In building a more connected community, we can also provide dignity and choice to people like my daughters as they grow into adults and maintain those elements as they age in place. They deserve that freedom, and through this new initiative, the National Safety Council and Bike Walk KC will find new ways to give them the choice which makes that freedom possible. Thank you.
And now we will be joined virtually by Mark Chung with NSC.
Roadway practice at the National Safety Council. First of all, my apologies for not being there with you due to the COVID protocols I'm following, but I'm truly grateful for this enabling technology that allows me to be with you virtually. Today, NSC is calling on policymakers and safety advocates to look ahead and consider trends to lay the groundwork for a better, safer, multimodal mobility future. To do so, we need to hold one another accountable on the actions that need to be urgently pursued. For NSC, our focus will continue to be striving for zero traffic deaths with an emphasis on three main areas. First, NSC will advocate for the need for progressive infrastructure and policy to reduce points of existing and emerging conflicts between modes as we envision a safe multimodal future. This new report discusses the way motor vehicles continue to play a significant role in contributing to roadway fatalities, especially toward people biking and walking. For this, NSC will explore best practices and adoption of progressive street design based on size and speed and advocating for these changes to be implemented. Second, NSC will confront the safety implications of vehicle design. Automobiles will continue to be utilized in the foreseeable future. However, with vehicles in the United States getting larger and heavier and creating more damage and loss of lives when crashes occur, it is more important than ever that we address vehicle design from a multimodal perspective. NSC will actively work to encourage improvements to NCAP and FMVSS that prioritize safety for occupants and non-occupants. Third, NSC will collaborate with the roadway safety community at large to reverse the traffic safety culture that accepts thousands of deaths each year. Growing fatality rates are accepted as the cost of our transportation system disproportionately impacting modes of active transportation and people of color. NSC will leverage its voice, its convening power, and the collective voice of its partners to create a culture shift around traffic safety, updating the narrative to reflect current research and best practices. We're also here today to continue our partnership with decision makers at the federal, state, and local levels, but to also acknowledge the need for improved accountability and transparency. This fall, NSC will begin issuing quarterly progress reports, tracking progress on the initiatives that we need now. Even today, in light of monumental funding and strategic support for our traffic safety, we are seeing progress in many areas, but stasis in others. For instance, we praise initiatives such as Safe Streets and Roads for All and other funding programs that have been launched in 2022. We also praise the NCAP revisions that are long overdue, and it was heartening to see all the great public interest during the open comment period. However, even with the revisions and recommendations, U.S. vehicle safety will still likely fall short of its global counterparts. We also praise the improvements to the community engagement and the transparency of the State Highway Safety Office grant programs funded by NHTSA, as well as the creation of vulnerable road user safety assessments and addressing the concerns found in the assessments. However, cross-agency collaboration is still a challenge, as evidenced by conflicting or confusing information shared by the agencies on the same safety topics. This is just a sampling of the initiatives that we will be tracking and sharing with the roadway safety community and the public at large. To conclude, I'd like to remind us that in the United States, we saw an estimated 10.5% increase in road deaths last year, the steepest increase on record. And as David mentioned, this comes at a time when virtually other wealthy nations saw a decline. This is a continuation of a decade-long trend, and the United States is an outlier in a very bad way. It is therefore incumbent on all of us who care about road safety, whether inside of government or outside of it, to reconsider how we've done things in the past, because the status quo simply is not working. And if it's working, it's not working well enough. So we at NSC are committed to doing our part and to holding ourselves and our partners accountable as we work to save lives. And I sincerely hope that you'll join us. And with that, I'm going to turn it back over to Nick for Q&A and closing.
Thanks, Mark. Appreciate your comments. And for folks who didn't hear, Mark is our VP of Roadway at the National Safety Council, and so has been leading this endeavor with Heidi's support. So we're at the end of our event, and so certainly want to say to those reporters that are online, if you have any questions, Noreen with our group will be following up so she can put you in touch with any of the experts that you're interested in speaking to. I think we have just a few folks here in the room. Again, Noreen will coordinate with you and can do that here today for any follow-up questions you might have, but we wanted to go ahead and give a chance for folks to wrap up and head out. But thank you. Clearly there's a strong passion here in the room for safety and for doing something different. And so appreciate all those who support this issue being here today. It's important for the National Safety Council and important for roadway safety. So thank you.